Hi, I'm Maran Zarian.
And I'm Stefan Sageman.
And this is Property Espresso. I'm with Stefan Sageman today, and we're at the 21 Days Restaurant and Bistro. Stefan, you're a hypnotherapist and a magician.
That's right. I'm a magician, hypnotist, and hypnotherapist.
Wow, there you go. He's got a lot of letters after his name, obviously.
Yeah. So the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy, obviously one is applied, therapy under trance, and the other is for entertainment purposes. But the audience has different misconceptions about both of them. And that's why that I say all three of them, because that way it boosts my credibility with potential clients as well as customers. And that way that they tend to be more attentive, they tend to listen more, and they tend to understand a bit more as to how I can help them or what I can do for them.
Absolutely. And you are very popular at the moment.
Thank you. Yes, it's good. I love the previous video that we've been doing, and it's good to see that people are actually listening and getting lots of information or taking something away from our videos.
Absolutely.
It's very important.
And last time we did actually speak about brand perception, and this time we're going to take a slightly different slant and look at the perception of service. Now this could be related to any type of service, but certainly the consumer can be the customer or the client. And in our case, I'm in the real estate business, and getting Stefan here who can give an overall picture of how people think and how it relates to the business. So Stefan, let's kick it off.
Absolutely.
With the brand perception, we delved quite deeply into how people perceive different brands based on the marketing and how it's presented. With service, it's a little bit more flowery, isn't it?
Yes, it tends to be, and that's because with a service, it's very different from a product, as we talked about branding in our last video. And so with a service, it's about creating a memory or a memorable moment that is, as we said again earlier, a convenience or a pleasure point rather than a pain point.
Yeah. With service in mind, if somebody hasn't used that particular service, say for a property, if they haven't sold for a long time or they haven't bought for a long time, then they're going to be reliant on what other people say, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're going to be focusing more on how they were, not necessarily how they are. And that's the problem, is that if they haven't been selling houses for 5 or 10 years, then they can be a lot more nervous, and the customer can pick that up quite quickly.
Absolutely. And the whole point of service is to make sure that the journey is seamless. There's no friction along the way, and that way the client or customer will enjoy it. They'll feel less stressed by it, and as a result, they're more likely to recommend you and be loyal and use you again. So from that aspect, it's a good thing to really focus on being proactive about service, isn't it?
Absolutely. When that service is fluid and the customer really enjoys it, they'll refer and they'll keep coming back to you, or they'll actively start looking for you. When they are renting or selling or buying, they're going to actively look for you because of based on the previous experience journey that you've given them.
Yeah, that's a key thing, really. I guess from the perspective of a potential client who's looking to sell, they would be trying to do as much research as possible to make sure that the service that they're expecting will be met. And each client's going to be individual, aren't they?
Absolutely. Each client has got a different view as to what the process is. And it's not just a simple buy and sell. There's also different undertows and things that people have got to meet, and it's really interesting as to how people go about that, the different processes they use to achieve the end result.
Transparency is really key here, because with a client who isn't sure about the process, being open and giving them that familiarity with how the process will work is really important. And also from the point of view that they will need to know everything about that process and not sweet coating it, but giving them the truth. And even if it's not a pleasant thing to tell somebody, that they might not get the price that they want, or they need to do some improvement in the way that they're presenting their home. So honesty is the key here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Honesty is the best policy. And to a real estate agent, it can seem like a pain point being honest with them at times. But that honesty will come back tenfold in the future. And you may not think about it something right then and there, but your clients will remember it. The people that you're selling to will remember, hey, at least he was honest, and that then also adds up to your likability as a real estate agent.
With that in mind, under-promising and over-delivering is always my key motto, because it's very easy to go into an appraisal and say to the vendor, hey, I can get you $200,000 more than somebody else because I'm better than them. However, going in and telling them the truth and showing them statistics which prove that their property is within a certain price category is reassuring, because you're not just telling them what they want to hear, you're telling them the truth as to what the stats have shown in the last 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely, it's so important. And when you do that, that then gives your customer, it gives your client that reassurance, that satisfaction in knowing what that average cost is and what the average evaluation is. So that way that you absolutely hit the nail on the head every time.
From the point of view of being transparent, you'd have to look at the whole holistic view of not just what's happening with that particular customer, but what's happening with the industry. And being true to your values and the company's values and gaining the trust of the customer is really, really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you gain trust, it opens up so many more doors. A lot of people don't think of that. They see that as more of an afterthought, but it's so essential for a real estate agent, for a business, but also from a customer's perspective, that when they're giving you a house or a home or something to sell, having that trust or having that rapport is absolutely crucial, because having that rapport is going to make or break a deal, or it's going to then give off what people think about you.
So on that point, you've touched a point there, rapport. Each individual person is going to be slightly different, and being able to ask the right questions.
Absolutely.
Being able to find out what their motivation is, but also what's important to them at the end of the day. It might not always be about price.
No, it may be about location or style of the house or something else. But it's important for you to find that out, not just have them typically tell you. You want to go into details as to what it is that they're looking for, what it is that motivates them, whether it be to sell or to buy. Why do they want to buy here? Why do they want to buy there?
That's the only way you're going to create a personalised journey for that person. At the end of the day, they're going to reach that stage where they've ended up with a transaction, they've reached the end of that journey, and is that where it ends, or do you continue through and keep in touch with those people? Because at the end of the day, that journey is not just about a transaction, it's about that lifelong friendship and communication with that person.
Absolutely, but also I think that often people then stop and then they're out of sight, out of mind. And when you keep the relationship going, when you keep people in the forefront of their mind, that's when they're instantly going to relate things. Oh, I need to tell that to that person, or oh, I need to ask them that question. It becomes a lot more easier and helpful to both parties, especially with a lot of people who are entering into the real estate business. They're thinking, well, can I focus on what my client doesn't want Therefore, I would know what they do want. And that is one way of looking at it, but it's much easier to find out what a client wants through that pleasure point rather than what they don't want, because then you're guessing, then you're assuming. And as we all know in history, that assumptions are never the best policy. It's always good to know what your client wants, because that's how you can create that rapport with them. That's how you can get a glimpse into their world as to what they want, and then you're not just assuming, but it's backed up with information and knowledge.
I was once told that people respond to two things. They either respond to wanting something pleasurable or wanting to avoid pain.
That's right. That's right. And the difference is that when people are focused on avoiding pain, they only move one step at a time. That's to avoid the pain. Think of like a king on a chessboard. They can move every direction, but they can only move one piece or one step at a time. However, when you're the queen or when you're motivated towards pleasure, you can move multiple steps. And that's why, as human beings, we are more wired to focus on pleasure rather than just that one step of paying a bill or getting out of that pain.
That's a good point.
It's
a very good point. If you can focus on the whole journey and make it pleasurable from start to finish, then you've got it made. And I think there's very few that actually focus on that whole journey. It's a key thing, particularly in smaller communities where you know the people, you know where they're likely to be moving to, and potentially they could be using you again in the future or using your service. So from that perspective, I think it's an important thing to focus on the whole journey.
Absolutely, and it's so important to base one of those pain and pleasure points not from you, but from your client. You know, if your client sees that it's more pleasure in procrastination, and you don't because you're a go-getter, then you're gonna not obviously create that trust. You're not going to be able to build that rapport, and you're not going to be able to then follow along with your client, because then you're going to be using two different structure systems to get the outcome. And the client's then going to feel, well, this is a bit too fast for me, and then they're going to pull back and reserve.
There's an unfortunate term for that in real estate that's called commission breath. And if you're looking at the commission and not the service, then you are going to fall into that trap, and the consumer is not going to have a pleasant taste at the end of the journey. From that perspective, what are your thoughts on if somebody is looking to sell their property and is unsure about what the future is going to hold as far as their next step, what would you suggest that they do as far as conditioning themselves from that process point of view?
And so, of course, you know, no one knows the future, but it's always about asking questions. It's always about asking questions and understanding where they're coming from. Just like, as I said, from identifying those pleasure and pain points, the same can be in the opposite direction. If you're so keen that you can sell their house, or if you're so keen you can get that rental up and running, if you come across as too keen or too focused on the positive that you can do everything for them, and they're not on the same level, they're going to pull back. Yeah.
Focusing a little bit away from real estate, I also read somewhere a few years ago that restaurants that provide mints at the end of the meal are more likely to get a tip.
Absolutely.
And some restaurants that provide more than one mint end up with more of a tip. So how does that work?
So that's psychological conditioning. And that's because, again, at the end of a meal, everyone's winding down. You know, they've had their fill, they've had their chat, and just that mint or just that extra giving, it's not something massive that we all, you know, it's just that little tiny thing that makes such a difference through our brain processes, but also just that after dinner thought. Yeah.
So that's that key word, isn't it? giving. And if you're just taking, then you're not going to be achieving that point where that person is going to be so happy with your
personal
service.
approach.
Yeah.
Personal approach. That's what it all comes down to. And not everyone has to, use mints. Find something that works for you, make it your own, and that way then it's personal. And there's nothing better to a client than having a personal touch from a real estate agent in that way. Just something that's small, it's nice, and it further pushes that expectation as to what you can do for them in their mind.
Focusing back onto restaurants.
Yep.
And restaurant service. People tend to go back to the same restaurants if they've enjoyed the service. People tend to order the same meal because they've enjoyed it over and over again.
That's right.
And it's familiarity, and it's something that people feel comfortable with at a time when they want to relax, they want to enjoy themselves. And if we can create that outside of real estate into another service like real estate, then I guess we could achieve something better.
Correct. And with a service, because it's a positive service they've had, that's what they're going back to. They're reliving that positivity, whether it be comfort, whether it be relaxing, whatever the positive outcome is or what it does for them, that's exactly why they're going back. Is because in an indecisive world where things can change, people will then always fall back onto familiarity. And it's so important when you recognise it. And this could be anything from foods to beverages, right through to customer service, or even how they made the client feel. Everything is right there.
It's very easy to fall into a cookie cutter approach and not provide that personalised service. Looking at that process from start to finish, I guess they've done the research, they've approached you as a facilitator, they look into your service and then compare you with somebody else's service. And if the two are almost identical, how do they make the decision?
And that's what's so important, is that you don't necessarily know what the client has done, what research they've done. And that's why transparency always comes back into key, is that if you meet what the client wants, then you can have someone around the corner who says, I'll sell your house tomorrow, and they won't actually go for it because you've built that relationship. You've built that persona. You've built that rapport. And that's what makes it as a key factor in, I believe, in business, not just real estate, but in all sorts of businesses.
We've been focusing a lot on the client and not so much the customer, but from a real estate point of view, the customer also does their research.
Absolutely.
And then they come to the open home. What do they experience at the open home? And I think looking at that experience of the customer from that journey, you might only end up with them for 5 or 10 minutes whilst they look around the house and come back out again. What do they experience in that 5 to 10 minutes? What's going to draw them to that property and what's going to keep them?
And so, of course, with a lot of properties, it's all down to the individual. And it's all down to the pre-wiring as to what they remember, what is valuable to them. In a world where everything is based on what we choose to focus on, everything else we delete. And so that's why it's so important about making it memorable, but not too memorable. So that way that people take it in. If it's too memorable, they think something's up. They think something's not quite right, or it's a bit silly. It could be a gimmick or whatever they want to call it. But that's why it's so important. It could just be welcoming them and then saying goodbye. How you do that, the mannerism, how you're holding yourself, how you're engaging with customers, how are you reacting to things, situations. It could be more than 2 people that are looking at a house at one time. How do you engage in all of those things? And that's why it's really important, is to keep those memorable moments and achieve them properly.
I suppose when you reflect on analogy that we use with restaurants, people going back to the same restaurants, using the same menu. With real estate, it's very similar in that if you give them the same senses, the smell, the look of the place, how they're welcomed, their whole experience in that 5 to 10 minutes, they're more likely to be comfortable with working with you going forward as well.
Absolutely. It's not just the senses, it's how you make them feel. You can absolutely involve the senses should you choose, but it all comes down as to kinesthetic connections. How does a person feel? And it could be from not even when you even see the person. It could be, a profile shot of you, or it could be, your voicemail. When they're trying to get a hold of you and you're out seeing someone else or you're busy on the road and they hear your voicemail. Is it assuring? Is it what they want? Does it sound good? All of these things. Does it say yes? Because that's the associations that you want to build up for your clients. Even if it's indirect, not just direct.
87% of communication is non-verbal.
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's why it's so important, because these days, in a world that is very indecisive, in a changing world, people are relying more and more on by how they feel, whether it's in the head, the heart, the gut, or in other areas of the brain. That's why it's so important to really apply how you feel about yourself, how you feel about yourself when you go to work or when you engage with clients or customers. Because if you feel calm and relaxed and professional and wanting to give them that positive experience, then they're going to feel that and mirror that back, genuinely.
You've just used that word mirror. In the old days, it used to be smoke and mirrors, didn't it?
That's right.
And you don't have to use smoke and mirrors to create that environment. As long as you listen to people, you're transparent, and you find out what their needs are going forward, then it'll be a success.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, Miriam.
It's been a joy.
Absolutely.
And if you'd like to use Stefan's services, his details are below. And if you'd like to use my services, my details are below as too. See you again.
Thank you.